St. Paul's United Methodist Church for our Good Friday service. I'm glad that you all could make it out to join us on this very solemn evening as we remember the passion of Jesus, his crucifixion, and his death. Before we begin, I do have one brief announcement, and that is that this afternoon we have placed out in front of our church our traditional Easter cross. So if you have any flowers that you'd like to place on the cross, it's there and available for you to come and to place flowers on the cross so that Easter morning we can celebrate the resurrection with our beautiful cross filled with flowers. But for now, let's turn our hearts and minds to that week that Jesus and his disciples spent in Jerusalem, and turn our hearts and minds to the events that transpired there that led to his arrest and his crucifixion. Let's join together now in our Good Friday service. After Jesus had driven the money changers from the temple, on Monday, the city of Jerusalem was very tense. Tuesday and Wednesday, Jesus led his disciples back into the temple, and crowds of Jewish pilgrims and Gentile God-fearers gathered, and Jesus taught them all about the kingdom of God in the temple. The priests and the scribes challenged Jesus' authority several times that week, but Jesus met their challenges and held them to account, proving his authority time and time again, energizing the crowds. The crowds loved Jesus so much that the chief priests and scribes became afraid that if they arrested Jesus in the open, There would be a riot, so they looked for a way to arrest him secretly. Events began to take a turn on Wednesday evening. While Jesus and the disciples were eating dinner in the house of Simon the leper, a woman came into the room to see Jesus. While she was speaking to Jesus, she took from her bag an alabaster jar filled with a sweet-smelling perfume, a perfumed lotion, and she began to anoint Jesus, pouring the lotion over his head. An argument broke out among the disciples. Some of them scolded the woman. "That ointment is too expensive," they told her. "Think of how many poor people we could have fed with the money that you spent on that. But now you've wasted that money." But Jesus said, "Leave her alone. She has done a beautiful thing for me. You always have the poor with you, and you can show kindness to them whenever you want. But you will not always have me. She has done what she could for me. She has anointed my body for my burial." After this argument, Judas Iscariot went to the chief priests to betray Jesus. This made the high priests very happy.
The next day, Jesus sent 2 of his disciples into Jerusalem with instructions to find a room in which they could share their Passover meal. They found a large room upstairs, just as Jesus had said they would. That evening, the disciples gathered to share the Passover meal. After they had all taken their places around the table, Jesus announced, "The truth is, one of you is sitting at this table eating with me, will betray me." The disciples became very upset, and each of them denied they would ever betray Jesus. But Jesus said, "It is one of the 12, one who dips his bread in the bowl with me." While they were eating, Jesus took bread, and after blessing it, he broke it, gave it to them, and said, "Take, this is my body." Then he took a cup, and after giving thanks, he gave it to them, and all of them drank from it. Jesus told them, "This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many. I tell you the truth, I will never again drink of the fruit of the vine until that day when I drink it new in the kingdom of God." When they had sung the hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. Jesus told them, "You will all desert me, just as it is written, 'I will strike the shepherd and the sheep will be scattered.' But," Jesus said, "after I am raised up, I will go ahead of you to Galilee." Peter said, "Even though the others will desert you, I will not." Jesus said to him, "Truly I tell you, this day, this very night, before the cock crows 3 times, you will deny me 3 times." They went on to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, "Sit here while I pray."
Go to darkness, ye that feel the tempest's power, your Redeemer's conflict see. Watch with him one bitter hour. Turn not from his grief away. Learn of Jesus Christ to pray.
Jesus took Peter, James, and John aside. He was very distressed and agitated and told them, "My grief is so deep right now that I feel like I'm dying. Stay with me and keep awake." Going a little ways from them, he collapsed to the ground and began to pray, "Abba, Father, for you all things are possible. Remove this cup from me. Yet not what I want, but what you want." After praying, Jesus went back to be with his friends, but they had all fallen asleep. "Couldn't you stay awake with me for just a little while?" he asked them. Jesus went back to pray again. "Abba, Father, for you all things are possible. Remove this cup from me. Yet not what I want, what you want. 3 times Jesus prayed. 3 times he found that his friends had fallen asleep. Finally, he told them, "That's enough. It's time. The Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Get up, let's get going. Here comes my betrayer now." While he was speaking, Judas arrived with a mob with swords and clubs. Judas went right up to Jesus. "Rabbi," he cried, and he kissed him. Then the mob grabbed Jesus and arrested him. One of the disciples drew his sword and struck the slave of the high priest, cutting off his ear. Jesus told them, "Day after day I was with you in the temple teaching, and you didn't arrest me. Why have you come out tonight with swords and clubs to arrest me as though I were a bandit?" But let the scriptures be fulfilled. The disciples ran and deserted Jesus. The mob took Jesus to the high priest, and all the chief priests, the elders, and the scribes, all were assembled.
See him at the judgment hall, beaten, bound, reviled, arraigned. Oh, the wormwood and the gall! Oh, the pangs his soul sustained. Shun not suffering, shame, or loss. Learn of Christ to bear the cross.
Peter followed the mob at a distance right into the courtyard of the high priest. He sat with the guards and warmed himself at the fire. The chief priests and the whole council had looked for testimony against Jesus to put him to death, but they found none. Many gave false testimony against him. Some said that Jesus had threatened to tear down the temple and raise it again in 3 days. But the witnesses contradicted each other. Then the high priest stood up in front of the mob and asked Jesus, "What do you have to say for yourself? Won't you defend yourself against these accusations?" Jesus was silent. The high priest asked, "Are you the Messiah, the Blessed One?" Jesus said, "I am. And you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of the power and coming with the clouds of heaven." The high priest tore his clothes and said, "Why do we still need witnesses? You have heard his blasphemy. What's your decision?" They condemned Jesus to death. Some spit on him. They blindfolded him and hit him, saying, "Prophesy who hit you." The guards took Jesus and beat him. While Peter was below in the courtyard, one of the servants of the high priest saw Peter warming himself. She stared at him and said, "You were with Jesus, the man from Nazareth." But Peter denied it. "I don't know what you're talking about." Peter withdrew into the court of women. The cock crowed, and the servant girl saw him again and told the crowd, "This man is one of them." Peter denied it again. Then after a little while, a person from the crowd said to Peter, "I am sure you are one of them. You're a Galilean." Peter began to curse, and he swore an oath, "I know nothing about this man you are talking about." At that instant, the cock crowed for the second time. Peter remembered that Jesus had said to him, "Before the cock crows twice, you will deny me 3 times." And he broke down and wept.
Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they crucified my Lord?
As soon as it was morning, they bound Jesus, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate. "Are you the king of the Jews?" Pilate asked Jesus. "You say so," Jesus replied. The chief priests railed accusations against Jesus. "Don't you have anything to say about all of these accusations?" Pilate said. Jesus remained silent. Pilate was astonished. During the Passover, it was Pilate's custom to release a prisoner the people requested. Pilate realized that the high priests were jealous of Jesus' power over the crowd. So when the crowd came to ask for Pilate to release a prisoner, Pilate asked them, "Do you want me to release your king of the Jews?" But the chief priests stirred up the crowd to have them ask Pilate to release Barabbas, a rebel accused of murder, instead. "Then what do you wish me to do with the man called the King of the Jews?" Pilate asked them. They shouted back, "Crucify him." Pilate asked them, "Well, why? What evil has he done?" But they shouted all the more, "Crucify him." So to satisfy the crowd, Pilate released Barabbas. After flogging Jesus, he handed him over to be crucified. The soldiers led Jesus into the courtyard of the palace, and they gathered the whole regiment. They clothed Jesus in a purple cloak. Twisting some thorns into a crown, they put it on Jesus, and they began to salute him, "Hail, King of the Jews!" They lashed his head with a reed, spat on him, and knelt down in homage to him, mocking him. After mocking him, they stripped him of the purple cloak, put his own clothes on him, and led him out to be crucified.
Were you there when they nailed him to the tree? tremble. Were you there when they nailed him to the tree?
They brought Jesus to the place called Golgotha, which means the place of a skull. And they offered him wine mixed with myrrh, but he refused it. They crucified him there. They divided his clothes among them, casting lots to decide what each should take. It was 9 o'clock in the morning when they crucified him. With him they crucified 2 bandits, one on his right and one on his left. The inscription of the charge against him read, "The King of the Jews." Those who passed by ridiculed Jesus, shaking their heads and saying, "Aha! You who would destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, save yourself and come down from the cross." In the same way, the chief priests and scribes mocked him among themselves, saying, "He saved others, but he cannot save himself. Let the Messiah, the King of Israel, come down from the cross now, so that we may see and believe." Even those who were crucified with him taunted him.
Were you there when they pierced him in the side? Were you there when they pierced him in the side? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they pierced him in the side?
When it was noon, darkness came over the entire land until 3 in the afternoon. At 3 o'clock, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, "Eloi, Eloi, lema sabachthani," which means, my God, why have you forsaken me?" When some of the bystanders heard it, they said, "Listen, he's calling for Elijah." And someone ran and filled a sponge with sour wine. They put it on a stick and gave it to him to drink, saying, "Wait, let's see whether Elijah will come and take him down." Then Jesus gave a loud cry and breathed his last. And the curtain of the temple was torn in 2, from top to bottom. Now, when a centurion who stood facing Jesus saw that he had breathed his last in this way, he said, "Truly, this man was God's Son." There were also women looking on from a distance. Among them were Mary Magdalene, and Mary, the mother of James the younger, and of Joseph and Salome. These used to follow him and provided for him when he was in Galilee. And there were many other women who had come up with him from Jerusalem.
Were you there when the sun refused to shine? Were you there when the sun refused to shine? Sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when the sun refused to shine?
The Jewish leadership did not want the bodies left on the cross during the Sabbath. So they asked Pilate to have the legs of the crucified men broken and the bodies removed. Then the soldiers came and broke the legs of the first and of the other who had been crucified with Jesus. But when they came to Jesus, they saw that he was already dead. So they didn't break his legs. Instead, one of the soldiers pierced his side with a spear, and at once blood and water came out.
Were you there when they laid him in the tomb? Were you there when they laid him in the tomb? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they laid him in the tomb?
When evening had come, Joseph of Arimathea, a respected member of the council who was also himself expectantly waiting for the kingdom of God, went boldly to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Pilate summoned a centurion and asked if Jesus were already dead. When Pilate learned from the centurion that Jesus was indeed dead, he granted the body to Joseph. Then Joseph brought a linen cloth, and taking the body down from the cross, he wrapped it in the linen cloth and laid the body in a tomb that had been hewn out of a rock. Then he rolled a stone against the door of the tomb. Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of Joseph, saw where the body was laid. Go in peace.